Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Clean Machine Live. My name is Geoff Palmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Clean Machine. We are a plant-based fitness nutrition company. Um, Before we get started, the usual FDA disclaimer: this video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Okay. Well, if for those of you who have been following me, you know I've been big on the research around omega-3. I have been vegan for 40 years this coming March. I'll start my 40th year as a vegan in March of 2024, if you're watching this later. And for 40 years, I have not consumed any EPA or DHA in their preformed state. So plants do not make EPA or DHA. They make ALA and SDA. Those are the first two. Let's go ahead and pull up what that looks like before we get started into the study. So let's take a look at the unidirectional conversion chart. Okay, so this is ALA. That's what we get from plants. It is the only essential omega-3. All the rest are not essential because our body can make its own. And it's really important that the body has these multi-steps. There's 6 different forms of omega-3s: ALA, EPA, and the bottom one, DHA, get the most recognition, but all of them play roles in the human body physiology and health and promoting health. Each one of these forms, ALA, SDA, ETA, EPA, DPA, and DHA, also can be metabolized into other forms called oxylipins. So the ALA itself has health benefits. The EPA has specific health benefits, and the DHA, but also their metabolites also have health benefits. Now, real key here at the very top, it says unidirectional conversion, which means this conversion only goes in one direction. This is really important because if you consume DHA down here at the bottom, you don't get any of the rest of the forms. If you consume ALA, which is produced by plants, the body can make all 6 forms of it. You can get ALA and all other 5 other forms of it. But by consuming preformed DHA like fish or algae, you do not get any of these because it cannot what we call retroconvert. You can't convert DHA back into other forms. We used to think you could do that, but now we know better. And we'll get into a little bit of that as we get into the story, but let's go ahead and start with the first study. So this is actually it's a March 2024 study, even though it's not March yet. It's scheduled for release in March, publication in March. So this will be a March 2024 study. We'll go ahead and put it up on the screen. So always you'll find the name of the study, the title of the study, so you can copy it and look for it yourself, or the link down below it too as well. Probably just as easy to Google the actual name of the study itself, and it'll pull up that, and then you'll have the link for yourself. But I put them all up there on the screen so that you could look up this research and see for yourself what the research is saying. Okay, so this research is called Long-Chain Omega-3 Fatty Acid Supplementation and Exercise-Induced Muscle Damage, EPA or DHA, question mark. So the big question for this study was, is it EPA that's delivering benefits for muscle recovery post-exercise, or is it DHA, or is it both? Okay, so let's take a look at what the study says. So the results of the present study suggest that 4 grams that's 4,000 milligrams of EPA mitigates the decline in muscle function as measured by jump performance, power metrics, and leg press, and reduced soreness compared to placebo. Okay, so they gave the subjects 4,000 milligrams of EPA. Now, this is a really high amount of EPA. typically you're looking at 2 to 500 milligrams of EPA as a decent dose. 4 grams is a lot. I think it's unnecessary, but a lot of times in studies like this, they use what's called acute amounts or high dosages to try to see if there's a magnified measurable effect. Obviously, if you put a lot of it in there, you're hopefully going to get a bigger response by the body, and this will show up in a more measurable approach so that you can see what's actually triggering the body to do things. Now, we got to be careful of these types of research because sometimes acute levels are not good, but moderate levels are very good. So you got to be careful with acute level or high dosage studies, and this is one of them. So that's one of the caveats of the studies. Also, that they used also 4 grams of DHA in the study, and that may be not only excessive but unsafe. That level of DHA can cause blood thinning and may be dangerous if you're already on blood thinning medications and stuff. Talk to your doctor before ever using this. But I want to look at this study and show it out, but I just wanted to make that caveat. Most doctors or physicians will recommend 100 to 200 milligrams of DHA a day, and in this study they used 4,000 milligrams of DHA. So please do not use that amount unless under supervision of your practitioner. Okay, so first part of the study, thumbs up on EPA. 4 grams of EPA did reduce any decline in strength gains, and it did reduce the overall soreness compared to placebo. Okay, so this was a randomized placebo-controlled study. Interventional means that they're changing something about the way of the consumption, and this, they're adding actually more EPA to it. Okay, all right, so that's one. Thumbs up on EPA. It did reduce things. Now, this is where it gets a little confusing. Similarly, 4 grams of DHA significantly preserved leg strength and attenuated muscle soreness within 24 to 48 hours. So it took a little bit longer to attenuate the muscle soreness with DHA, and there lies a clue. This is really interesting. Sometimes you have to really kind of listen to what the results are saying and go, oh, wait a minute, I know why that possibly could be happening. Okay. So why did it take DHA longer for the recovery? Keep that question in mind because it gets more interesting and more confusing here when you read the study at face value. The study goes on to say, but when they combined EPA and DHA in equal amounts, there was no enhancement in recovery of strength or reduced soreness. None. So what the heck happened here? If EPA alone did improve muscle performance, kept keeping strength, and it reduced soreness, but then DHA alone also did the same thing, it just took longer. What is going on that when you add both, you should have gotten a positive, but you got a null effect? There was no benefit when DHA was combined with EPA. Okay. Well, they went on to the conclusion of it, said the researchers concluded adding that equivalent dosing of EPA and DHA may blunt the performance effects observed in EPA or DHA alone. Weird. Okay. Now, when you eat animal products like fish oil or fish, it generally comes with a comparable amount of EPA and DHA. But when you consume plants, you consume the ALA form and let your body convert it to the different forms, EPA, ETA, DHA, DPA, all of the different forms. So you're giving the body the precursor when you consume plants and letting your body decide how much EPA or DHA remains in the bloodstream. This part is really important. Okay, so why did EPA work and then DHA by itself work, but they did not work when combined together at all, resulting in no benefits for muscle performance. Okay, so let's try to tease out what's going on there. But first, we have to understand that there is no retroconversion. So DHA cannot convert back to EPA. So if EPA was imparting the benefits and not DHA when it combined with it, that would make sense. But it does make sense when you read this study. Okay, so this study done by Methril, who did this great new research that just came out of University of Toronto, showing that ALA does in fact convert down all the way to DHA in the tissues, not in the bloodstream. Why is that important? Because in the bloodstream, it can affect cardiovascular health and muscle health, because your blood goes to your muscle immediately upon for recovery purposes to your muscle. Okay, so we're starting to get some clues here. All right, so you can see this compound specific isotope, it's a form of measuring it in the blood, reveals there is no retroconversion of DHA to EPA, but substantial conversion of EPA to DHA following supplementational control. Excuse me. Okay, the study goes on to find these new findings suggest that one, there's substantial synthesis of DHA from EPA, but the increases of EPA upon feeding DHA results from a slowed EPA metabolism, not retroconversion. Okay, let me explain that. Let's go ahead and pull up the diagram a little bit here. All right. So this is the conversion chart. Oops, let me hide that. There we go. Okay, so this is the thing. So ALA will convert down to EPA rapidly and readily in the bloodstream. But if you take DHA and put it into the bloodstream, the body says, whoa, that's too much DHA, we've got enough. Let's cut off the enzymes. You see those little green arrows in between each one of these? An enzyme converts that, and they are epigenetically controlled. So let's think of them as little spigots. We can use our genes to signal and say, turn off that enzyme so that you stop down converting. This is a big water flow that only flows in one direction. All right, so when you put DHA into the system, then the body says, oh, stop, don't convert any more EPA down to DHA. I've got enough. Well, what happens is that triggers DHA to start piling up because all this ALA, SDA, and ETA all keep converting down to EPA, but it stops converting even further. What you get by adding DHA is an elevated level of EPA by simply adding too much DHA into the bloodstream. So the body tries to super balance it. It tries to compensate by upping the level of EPA. So this is how you can get this effect. Let me go ahead and take that down, hide this. Okay, now let's go back to the study. And it said that EPA plus DHA did not enhance recovery. That's when you're adding EPA and DHA, you've already upset the balance of both. One, the body didn't downregulate the ALA to EPA, and two, your DHA doesn't want to increase any more EPA like it normally would, so you've got the whole system all confused. This is why there's a nullifying effect. Okay. So EPA is the one doing all the good stuff. And when you throw DHA in there, it stops that. It upregulates EPA so that the EPA can do the healing. That's why when you combine them both, you get a null effect. All right, I'm gonna explain this by a little better by showing you that the ratios matter. Okay. So now the body is trying to balance the ratios, and what it wants is a high level of EPA and a low level of DHA. We see this. If you take ALA from plants and put it into the human body, it will convert a lot of EPA because EPA is beneficial for the cardiovascular system. DHA is not. DHA can have negative effects in the cardiovascular system, in the bloodstream. So the body doesn't convert much DHA in the bloodstream, intentionally keeping that DHA level low. All right, let's look at this next study. This is why ratios are important. The ratio of EPA to DHA as a modulator for the cardio-metabolic effects of omega-3 supplements. So this is a randomized clinical trial as well. So they found in this study that a higher EPA to DHA ratio was an even more pronounced reduction of C-reactive protein. This is one of the damaging effects that can cause cellular damage. Okay, so EPA is much better than DHA at reducing C-reactive proteins. These are the proteins that can cause damage, that can lead to muscle soreness and many other problems, health problems. Okay, the higher EPA to DHA ratio, the greater the reduction in CRP. Also, the higher EPA to DHA ratio, the greater increase in systolic blood pressure. Now you'd say, wait a minute, why is that a good thing? Because when you're exercising, you need more blood to the muscles quickly to give the muscles oxygen, to give it glucose and sugar so it can keep running, to send that ATP and to pull the waste products away. So what the body does is constrict the blood vessels so that the blood goes through a lot faster and gets to the muscles faster. So you want an increase in systolic blood pressure when you exercise. You don't want a sustained one. That's called high blood pressure or hypertension. You don't want that. That comes from a very different reason. But for exercise, you actually want that. Now, DHA does the opposite. So you don't want that. So you want a higher EPA to DHA ratio, both in reducing the inflammatory markers like CRP and by increasing the systolic blood pressure. This is exactly what EPA does and what DHA counters. This is why the body chooses only to convert ALA down to EPA majorly and only a 1% of it to DHA, just enough to feed other tissues or top off stores. Okay, so that's why ratios are important. And it goes on, the study. DHA also reduced levels of anti-inflammatory proteins. Well, this is exactly the opposite of what you want, because when you work out, you're creating radical oxygen species, which can be damaged, inflammatory proteins. And DHA actually reduces levels of anti-inflammatory proteins, exactly the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. Whereas EPA does not do this. EPA improves the balance between pro and anti-inflammatory proteins. So in our bodies, there's always a balance between pro-inflammation and anti-inflammation. You need some pro-inflammation to stimulate muscle growth, but you want mostly post-workout anti-inflammatories. And we found, quote, EPA was better than DHA at enhancing that balance. Boom. Okay, so there it is. It's really clear what the body wants to do, is trying to do, but it needs the right substrate. When you put preformed DHA in your body, you're just making the DHA appear in the bloodstream. And the body says, what are you doing? I don't want that. That doesn't belong here. It's saying, if you give it plant sources of ALA, it'll convert it only down to what it wants in the bloodstream. That's why consistently, over and over again, ALA will convert highly effectively and efficiently to EPA. It'll convert ALA to SDA, SDA to ETA, and ETA to EPA. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is the three that we're talking about. Now, let me take the comment down here. Okay, so our body then wants a high level of ALA, SDA, ETA, and EPA, the top four. And this is exactly what we see happen when you give the body plant-based ALA, omega-3, or SDA. So this is where the blood wants to be. The body is trying to get this level all here. and keep DHA out of the bloodstream. We see when you put ALA, SDA in there, only about 1% is converted in the blood. The rest of it is converted safely in the tissues away from the bloodstream so as not to affect your cardiovascular health. Well, let's go ahead and jump into that and show you what that looks like. Actually, let's take this down. Okay, next study. All right, so that we're seeing really clearly plant-based omega-3s may boost heart health and reduce heart disease. So this is a 2022 study, and what did they find? Okay, researchers found that consuming ALA was associated with a 10% lower cardiovascular risk and a 20% reduced risk of dying from heart disease. I think that's pretty important. Okay. But here's the interesting part of this study. When people with low levels of omega-3 in their diet ate ALA, they saw a benefit in cardiovascular health. Cool. Well, that's kind of expected, especially if the ALA can convert all the way down to EPA and DHA, which we've seen in studies. But here's the interesting part. When people with high levels of omega-3s from other sources, i.e. algae, fish oil, preformed EPA, when they ate ALA, they also saw a benefit. So the benefits from ALA are above and beyond anything that you can get from high levels of taking EPA and DHA. So ALA is actually even more effective because it imparts other benefits that you simply cannot get from EPA and DHA. It is impossible because of the unidirectional conversion. So what we're seeing here is it's best to start with ALA because ALA itself is giving health benefits that EPA and DHA downstream conversion metabolites impossibly cannot provide. Even when you had high levels of EPA and DHA from fish or algae, ALA still gave better benefits on top of that. So you could take ALA instead of EPA and DHA and get all of the benefits, ALA's benefits, SDA's benefits, all the way down the board, instead of just starting with downstream metabolites. Okay, so all right, if that wasn't good enough, let's take a look at this study because this one is really mind-blowing to me. This is really showing why it's important. Now, I showed you the very first study, how adding DHA, preformed DHA to EPA nullified the beneficial effects of EPA on muscle health. Well, that's really cool, but this is a lot more important. So this is a 2023 study, just last year, summer of last year. Effective omega-3 PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, on cardiovascular outcomes with patients with diabetes. Now, I hope they repeat this in people without diabetes, but this is a meta-analysis of RCTs, randomized control studies. Meta-analysis meaning they looked at a bunch of different studies and accumulated the results and found out what that is. Okay, so what they found in this study is EPA alone reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease in patients with diabetes, whereas the combination of EPA and DHA was not significantly associated with it. So once again, you're seeing as soon as you add preformed DHA into the bloodstream, really important here, when it's in the bloodstream, when you get it by eating it in animal products, fish oil, or algae, you're getting it preformed and it's dumping into the bloodstream. And as soon as you do that, you can nullify, wipe out the benefits of EPA. Now, this is really important because, so what are the reasons for this? Let's take a look. Number one that they found in the study, that the DHA increases LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. Number two, EPA decreases LDL cholesterol and increases good HDL cholesterol. Okay, so EPA is a better modulator of good and bad lipid profiles, LDL cholesterol to HDL cholesterol, whereas DHA increases LDL cholesterol. Now, when you increase LDL cholesterol, you can over time limit the body's ability to vasodilate, open up the blood vessels. Now, you need vasodilation. Obviously, in sports nutrition, we sell vasodilators like arginine and polyphenols to help the body improve this elasticity of the endothelium, the blood vessels, so that you can get more blood to your muscles. So this is one of the reasons why they're probably seeing a nullifying effect when you add DHA to your EPA and not getting the same results for that. So it goes on. Number 3, EPA and statins improved endothelial function while DHA did not. EPA can protect against atherosclerosis, the #1 cause of death of human beings on the planet. DHA does not. It does this by protecting against the oxidation of LDL and HDL cholesterol. This is a good thing. DHA, not so much. And this is why the body prefers a plant source of omega-3 so that it can convert ALA only to its first 4 forms up to EPA and stop there, and do not increase levels of DHA significantly, only about 1%. And then take that tissue, the rest of the EPA, store it in tissues, and convert it in tissues like the liver, like the brain, like fatty tissues, only when and where it needs it, so that you're not putting excess levels of DHA into the bloodstream. Okay, so we've seen ALA is better, clinically proven. We've seen that EPA is the reason for the benefits in muscle function, also in cardiovascular health, whereas DHA actually nullifies both of those effects. This is why you don't want EPA and DHA in equal amounts, like what you'd find in animal products, especially fish oil, or now even algae oil. You do not want those into the bloodstream. What you want is the precursor to allow your body to choose when and where to elevate those mechanisms because of C-reactive protein, because of regulation of blood pressure. If you need to lower blood pressure, more DHA. If you need to increase blood pressure, like for exercise, more EPA. The body will regulate those things endogenously, but only if you give them the precursor so it can make those changes itself. Your body knows the levels of each one of those ratios of EPA to DHA it needs for each gender, for each age, for each condition, for each activity level. All of those variables can be controlled by the body if you give it the plant precursor, instead of introducing downstream forms that the body says, wait a minute, I didn't make that. I don't want that. That's too much. That's disruptive to my endogenous regulation. Okay, but we're starting to see this even in other animals. Check this study out. Okay, this is a 2014 study, so it's an older study, but it's an amazing one because it has relevance. So we would see something like this across species or in different species, and this is an animal, a mammal like us. This one happens to live in the ocean. It's bottlenose dolphins. So this study is titled Unexpected Similarity in Red Blood Cell DHA and Arachidonic Acid Levels between bottlenose dolphins and humans. Okay, they chose DHA and arachidonic acid because they're both downstream. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, this is a graphic. Let me take down the comment first. Yeah, all right. Okay, so this is a graphic of omega-3 conversion and omega-6 conversion. As you can see right in the middle, delta-6 desaturase right at the top converts both omega-6 and omega-3 down to its next forms, which is GLA and stearidonic acid, or SDA. So the exact same enzyme is used to convert these, but they both stop at a level that is important and why it's regulated. EPA is where it stops in humans, and arachidonic acid. So stopping at EPA means you are protecting the body from ever getting too much DHA. So this is really important. And by stopping at DGLA, you protect the body from getting too much arachidonic acid, which is the pro-inflammatory molecule that our body uses for inflammatory response. Too much of is not a good thing. Okay, so you see omega-3 and omega-6 both using the exact same enzymes, which are both endogenously regulated. They're epigenetics. We turn on a gene to produce this enzyme, turn off the gene, stop producing the enzyme. This is how our body internally controls the exact levels of each one of these downstream forms of omega-3 and omega-6 using the exact same enzymes for both omega-3 and omega-6. All right. So that's important before understanding the rest of this study. Let me go ahead and hide this and pull up the study. Okay. So I'll go ahead and put up a study real quick because we'll re-reference it again. Unexpected similarity in red blood cell DHA levels and arachidonic acid, the inflammatory omega-6. Okay. So what did it find? It found the mean omega-6 of dolphins was almost 20%, compared with only 6% of human beings. Well, that's a big difference. But understandably, dolphins eat almost entirely fish. So that's what they're getting. They're getting a whole lot of EPA and DHA into their system. But read the next sentence. EPA levels were 15.3% versus 1.2% in humans. That is a huge disparity. But what we're seeing in them is that the dolphins, even just like other mammals, prefer a much higher EPA level to DHA. Now, this is where it gets interesting. But DHA levels were virtually identical in humans and dolphins. So there's a huge difference between EPA and almost no difference between DHA lead levels in the red blood cells. That means in the bloodstream. So why is this? Okay, let's go ahead and continue on with the study. Dolphins have an omega-3 index that is 3 to 4 times higher than that of US adults, despite their intake of EPA and DHA being 165 times higher. So they're eating fish all day, right? We're not. And they're consuming a lot of fish. We're not. So normally you'd see 165 times more EPA and DHA coming, yet they keep their DHA in their blood cells very, very low. 165 times more DHA consumed than humans, yet exactly the same amount of DHA in humans. Fascinating, isn't that? So this is showing us that even the dolphin's metabolism is smart enough to keep DHA out of the bloodstream. Keep it in tissues where it's safe, but keep it out of the bloodstream. Even with 165 times higher intake of DHA, their bodies is kicking that DHA out almost immediately and only keeping the same amount you find in human beings. So there is a static control for DHA in humans and in dolphins, as well as arachidonic acid. Okay, it goes on. So red blood cells, RBCs, EPA and LNA, or linoleic acid, which is the omega-6, are relatively reflective of intakes than are DHA. So this is saying that if we eat a lot of ALA or LA, that we'll have higher levels of corresponding EPA, but not DHA, because our body tightly controls the amount of DHA that's in the bloodstream. The only way you could impose a higher level of DHA than the body really wants is by consuming pre-formed DHA from algae or fish. And then the body has to scramble to try to rebalance the whole system that you just screwed up. You just threw the body out of balance by consuming an animal product high in DHA, or an algae product high in DHA. So we're seeing this cross species. The mechanisms by which certain fatty acid levels appear to be fixed, DHA and arachidonic acid, we try to control. Our bodies, both in humans and dolphins, control that level very strictly, a fixed amount. So this is what's going on. Our body wants to control this, and we are overriding it by using supplementation that has preformed DHA in it, or by consuming animal products, which we should not be doing. So this is really clear evidence that we should not be consuming preformed EPA or DHA. Okay, to summarize this all, our body has an endogenous regulatory system to make sure it's controlling each amount. That each level from ALA all the way down to DHA is important for various different functions in the body. Our body controls those ratios epigenetically. It does not want DHA at a high level in the bloodstream, or it would have converted it to that level. Every time we consume ALA, SDA, ETA, or EPA, the first four, you only get a high rise in EPA in the bloodstream. You actually can get a reduction of DHA in blood cells. We've seen that in research. It's because the body is trying to rebalance it and remove that DHA from the bloodstream. That's why the body chooses not to do this, because DHA increases LDL cholesterol, because DHA increases major cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes. This is a negative effect. Now, the body will use some of this to counterbalance it when it needs it. But we're even seeing this in performance levels. When you consume DHA, you're wiping out the benefits that the EPA, ALA, SDA, and ETA are all imparting to the body, because you just overrode the system. You've overbalanced where the body can regulate this. So, yes, taking ALA can do it. You do need to consume enough, but here's the good news. When they measured DHA in the total body, they found about 50 grams, that's 50,000 milligrams of DHA stored in our tissues, liver, fat, and brain tissues mostly. Okay. What is 50,000 milligrams? Well, they measured the actual usage of DHA in the brain, and it's 2.5 to about 3.8 milligrams. So 2 to 3.5 milligrams per day is what you need, and your body stores 50,000 milligrams. That's about 20 plus years worth of stored DHA. Of course, your body's using DHA for other purposes, but the main source of DHA usage is in the brain. So you're talking 20 years of storage. And why would the body do that? It's overcompensating for something that it really needs is important for the brain. So it's making sure we have enough, even if we're in a ice age and can't find any food for a year, whatever, right? It's covering for the times of feast and famine. So it's being overprotected to make sure we have it. So if you're consuming ALA on a regular basis, you are feeding and topping off those stores. We've seen this in the new research. The ALA, actually, most of it goes, some of it gets converted into EPA in the bloodstream immediately. And then more of it actually gets stored in fat tissues and then converted on an as-need basis. When you need it, where you need it, and only the amounts you need it, and only the ratios you need it. This is the endogenous regulatory system that the human body is such a beautiful, beautiful system. It regulates itself. It gives the body exactly what it needs. It controls this. And when you dump in preformed DHA from fish or algae, you're just wrecking that whole system. You're negating the health benefits for cardiovascular. You're negating the benefits of muscular health and healing and recovering faster. Why do that? And you're increasing LDL cholesterol. Why do that? It's not only not necessary, it is potentially harmful. This is why it's so important. Look, I realize many of the plant-based doctors out there and many of the physicians think they're doing the right thing based on the old research, but this new research is changing completely our understanding of omega-3 nutrition. Once we see how the body works, why it works that way, let's stop fighting it and start working with it. Give it what it needs, the first precursor. That's why ALA is the only essential amino acid. Now, there is a caveat, and I want to pull up the slide here because there are people with what they call SNPs. Okay, SNPs are genetic variations. The genetic variation is in this first one. Actually, let me pull up the other slide. It's better at kind of showing this. Okay. So when you look at the very top one on the right, you see alpha-linolenic acid. That's ALA. That is the only essential omega-3 for humans. You see the delta-6 desaturase. That is the first enzyme that converts it down to SDA, or stearidonic acid, and that starts the whole cascade event. There are some people that have a genetic variation. It's anywhere from 3 to 10%, depending on who you're talking to. Could be less, could be more. Don't quote me on that. So delta-6 desaturase, or D6D, this is the enzyme that is not as well produced by people with these SNPs, these gene variants. For those people, if you have a plant source of SDA that gives you both ALA and SDA, then you bypass that delta-6 desaturase step. This makes it user-friendly for people with even that genetic flaw. I shouldn't say flaw, genetic variation. Okay, so what is the highest source? Well, back in 2017, I was searching for a plant source, and a wonderful man, Andrew Hebert, had been working on this for almost 30 years. And he grew and developed from a seed in the UK a plant called ahi flower. Ahi flower is the richest source of SDA of any non-GMO plant on the planet. And I'm like, eureka. We have a plant that not only provides all the ALA and the SDA that will bypass that first step for those people that do have that gene variation. Now, you can go get tested. It's an expensive, DNA testing to find out if you have that gene variant, or you can simply just take ahi flower and make sure that you're getting it. So I call ahi flower the universal plant-based omega-3 because it's the only one. Flax contains 0 SDA, chia, 0 SDA. Hemp has a little bit of SDA, but ahi flower has 8 to 10 times more SDA than hemp. So hemp is better than flax or chia, ahi flower multiple times better. This is why I was the very first person in this market to bring ahi flower to market, because I was like, wow, finally we have a universal plant-based omega-3 that does not have DHA in it, and it has the highest amount of SDA, so it can convert even for anybody, regardless of your genetic variations. I am out there searching, doing the research, and getting this so that you guys can enjoy health. You can enjoy those fitness levels. Like, I'm 61 years of age. That's a 61-year-old bicep, 100% drug-free. I don't take any drugs or medications. I don't even do aspirin unless it's extremely needed. I just don't want drugs in my body. That's why I named my company Clean Machine, to encourage people to keep this extraordinary machine clean, free of animal products and free of drugs. And why animal products? It's not because I'm trying to tout some, vegan propaganda or whatever. It's because your health. And I'm hoping this research really shows that human physiology is set up and designed for ALA and SDA that are found in plants, not animals. Animals have that pre-converted EPA and DHA in it that can upset the balance and ratios and cause potentially cause or lead to health problems. I want the best health for you. That's why I do what I do, not for some dogma or belief system, but because the plants are the most health promoting in both essential amino acids as well as essential fatty acids. Both of them are made by plants and not animals. So it's really clear. The research keeps coming, and this is a 2024 study that I started out with, showing the health benefits, showing the exercise benefits by not consuming DHA. The story just keeps repeating itself. I'll keep sharing this information. Thank you for the questions. I really hope to get this out. If this information is not being shared by a lot of people, if you have anybody that has a podcast, or you can share this video with any doctors or practitioners that you know out there, please do that. I want to get this information out there because we need to change what we are saying and recommending for people about omega-3 nutrition. This is important. It can be the difference for some people ending up 20, 30 years down the road with a stroke or a heart attack or not. And I'd hate to think that we're giving the wrong information. The science is pretty convincingly showing repeatedly. That's why I showed so many different studies, is because it's saying the same thing. Let the body decide what form of omega-3 and omega-6 and let it do its cascade. If you have a genetic variant that doesn't allow the first step, we have a solution for you. It's ahi flower. I won the Nexty Award for ahi flower. Ahi flower won the Nexty Award, in 2017. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. Please share, give it a thumbs up, leave some comments. I'm happy to answer your questions on this. I have been working on this omega-3 conundrum for almost 40 years now, and it's only now that we're really starting to have the research in place to paint a very clear picture of what human beings really should be putting in their bodies in order to work with our own physiology to produce the best health outcomes. Thanks for joining me. I'll be taking the next week off due to moving to a new place. So I'll see you a week after that with a really cool new bit of research too. So excited to share. We'll be first to be talking about that as well. Thank you for watching.